Okay. So please, Christian, when you want, you can start.
Thank you, Fabio. Do you all hear me well? It's all right, yeah. So please interrupt me if at some point you don't hear me well. Yeah, so thank you to the organizers, Lily and Fabio. I'm grateful to have been given this opportunity to present to you. And what I have to say in several ways take inspiration from your work on divine presence and Muslim as well as non-Muslim or other than Muslim ontologies. The overall issue attended to in your recent collection, as well as I think Furani and Robbins, and perhaps an increasing number of other contemporary scholars, this question: how could the professional thinking of anthropologist academics be other if it included dwelling in non-cognitive homes of wonder, intuition, passions, mysteries, bodies, revelation, or in other spaces generally closed off by secular boundary drawing? I think this is a combined citation of you guys and some other stuff as well. So, in itself, combining things that were otherwise several articles, but I think we're really witnessing painful and violent forms of boundary making, both within and beyond academia. So this question that you and Robbins and Furania are raising seems urgently important. So I look forward to continuing this exploration with you. When I prepared this presentation, I came to think of a photo I took a few years ago. I just see if I can share it. Share desktop like this. Yeah.
Yes, we can see. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we can see him.
Yeah.
Works.
You see something that looks like a heart?
Yes, we see it.
That's great. So I came to think of this photo, which I took a few years ago. It's an image of a heart. So my wife, Mette, created this little heart with her hands out of a leaf. And she made the leaf heart while playing with our son in a forest, who also made other things out of leaves. And at one point, as they were playing, she then placed the leaf heart above her sweater around the area of her heart as an invitation for me to take a picture of it. So the memory of this image and the memory of the situation in which I took this image, I think you can imagine, touches me. And I can still feel this. Using images and photograph, and in this case, it's a photograph, but also film or paintings or drawings, they could equally be used, are valuable for the anthropological exploration of such sensations and feelings. And they can be used to exemplify, analyze, elicit, or evoke such sensations and feelings in ways that may complement what we can do in anthropological writing. So that was just something to begin with. I think I can stop sharing. Yeah. So in the communities where I mostly conduct my research, in Egypt and in Denmark, people, and myself included, might often try to begin a presentation by saying, either loudly or inwardly, as an intention, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. One possible translation is in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. So I think this is easy to express if all in the room agree that it's a great thing to express. But in a space where people might not feel a connection to the tradition where this statement comes from, it can be difficult, perhaps even problematic or divisive to say this. When I try to begin this talk with such a phrase, I hope that I can do so in a way that's not divisive or exclusive to a very specific doctrine, but could perhaps just be conceived as a gesture towards, or a hope that our meeting and this talk could be guided in a way that I cannot really accomplish on my own. And that this period of time that we will spend together could become beneficial in some way. For me, it's also, I think, a way of beginning with a sense of good intention and a way of getting a bit beyond myself, relax my anxieties, and relax my desires for presenting something amazing or very clever, and perhaps also relax the cravings that sometimes appear for recognition or prestige. All of this stuff that often comes to stand in the way. So just I think immediately thinking of boundaries when saying something like that in a language that's, my Arabic is quite broken. So Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, it's a foreign, it's words that are foreign, it's words that I would have to work hard to try to see if I could even pronounce or understand. And immediately there are these kinds of boundaries, and how can this be set, and what does it mean, and all of this stuff appears, I think. So I think it's relevant to think about how can we sort of attune ourselves, and what's the bridges or passages towards feeling into the meanings across languages or worlds or such words. And what came to my mind with this particular little phrase, which is relevant for the talk that I was thinking about doing, is of course Ya Rahman Ya Rahim, difficult words to translate. They can be translated into something like compassion or mercy, or a lot of compassion, or a lot of or most merciful, or, but I mean, that's not it's not easy to translate such these names. But one thing that was helpful for me was when I heard from a friend that these words have the root rahim, which means womb. So this sense of the womb, this place that we all come from, I don't remember how it was to be in the womb, but I do know that I was there. I remember my mother. I remember how she took care of me, and I can imagine how I was once taken care of in the womb and fed, and the temperature was regulated, all of these things. So immediately, when attending to such words like this, they connect me to a sense of gratitude. That's quite real to me. And maybe in a similar, to give a similar kind of anecdote about the word Bismillah. So this word Allah, how to, this word was not something I grew up with. So how to attend to it. I remember when I first learned of it, or how to use it, it was a guy I was working on, ruqya, or how to get jinn spirits out of bodies, human bodies. And it was quite a complex thing to work on. And a guy thought it was helpful to me, for me to say Allah, because and so he taught me how to say this, and that whenever I would be afraid of having jinn spirits interfering into my system, they would immediately go away, and my fear would go away as well. So just say Allah. And so I started trying this out, and it was useful. Um, but um, but the other story I thought about was a beautiful late night in Cairo a couple of years ago, where I was sitting in a friend's car looking at the leaves of a tree that was just in front of us. And so my friend was telling me and trying to teach me how to communicate with this tree. And then he asked me, so why actually did God give us this word, this name, this sound, Allah? And of course, I had no real answer to such a question. And then he asked me to consider the way that this sound could be understood as an imitation or a replication of the beating of the heart. So this Allah, or how to imagine that this word could somehow describe this pumping of a muscle or the organ of the heart. And so he described how the recitation of Allah helped him to tune into and feel into the beating of his own heart in his chest, and how he had come to understand and actually experience his heart as an ongoing and continuous remembrance of Allah. So I find this beautiful, this invitation that this guy extended to me of feeling into how inside people, inside both him and also me, there are these hearts that keep our blood circulating and oxidized and directly connecting us as we were sitting there in the car with the tree. The tree, which of course also is producing, or at least taking part in the production of the oxygen that we were breathing and which was being pumped around in our blood. And so how simply listening or sensing into this organ in our chest and the beating of our heart might also be a way to connect to what we call the divine. So my friends listening or sensing into this organ in our chest and to the possible relation between the heartbeat and the word Allah helped me to attune myself into his understanding of how we can communicate both with trees and with each other and with the divine. So this was a bit about to sort of talk a little bit about sensations of both connection and cohesion, sensations of compassion or trying to feel into something like compassion as well as to gratitude, qualities that many religious traditions are attributing to the heart. So I've been invited to give a talk on our ongoing project, Heart Openings, the experience and cultivation of love in Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam. And so this project is funded by the EASA, and it's hosted at Aarhus University. We are in the midst of the project, and I'll not be able to provide conclusions on the research, but I hope to discuss the background of the project and to show examples of our research and to discuss our methodology. And most of all, I hope to engage you in a broader conversation. Is it possible, or is it a good idea to find a way or to further develop a way of doing anthropology of and from the heart? Can the bodily, emotional, and spiritual heart be both an object of inquiry and a starting point for research? Would that be interesting? Could it be useful? If so, what then is needed in order to do anthropology of, on, with, or from the heart? Anthropologists have often, and often rightfully so, been accused of being involved in colonial and exploitative relationships. But mutual care, respect, responsibility, and love have also played a role in the long-term relationships that can develop through anthropological research. We are not starting from scratch. There is something to build upon. Maybe there's even a lot to build upon. Is it possible to give those qualities of the heart even more space in research and teaching, in scientific criticism, and in our engagement with the communities and the environments in which we live and work? And what would that look like? What does it mean to, for example, write an article from such a space or to give such a presentation um, attending to those qualities? Does that change anything? If so, what and how? So I propose to consider these questions with you, not from a standpoint of certainty. A first observation, if you did not already discover, is that I do not know so much about the heart. So what I build upon is not certainty, but maybe more intuitions that attending to the qualities of the heart are important in order to understand and counteract the tensions, the indifference, and the intercultural misunderstandings that characterize our contemporary world. So in this talk, I'll introduce audiovisual or multimodal and microphenomenological methods that I believe can help us to address these questions by deepening our understanding of the role of the senses, the body, and emotions in human life. And I also invite for a short auto-elicitation exercise, and I present examples from our research on the ways in which practitioners in Buddhist, Christian, and Muslim traditions relate to the heart and how in different ways they experience and seek to cultivate love in their lives. And so taking inspiration from this exercise and these examples, I hope to engage you in a discussion of how in different ways we do or could do anthropology often from the heart. So if you agree, I would like to invite you to take part in a short exercise. If you don't feel like taking part in the exercise, then you can just take a quick pause, and I think we'll be finished in approximately 5 minutes. So if you wish, you can close your eyes, and if you prefer, you can also leave them open. So I invite you to think back to a specific moment, a specific situation somewhere, a moment in which you felt someone was attending to you, looking at you, or listening to you with kindness and love. You can choose any experience you wish to attend to. You will not be asked to share this experience. Please take your time to let such a memory of a specific moment in which you felt someone was attending to you, looking at you, or listening to you with kindness and love. Let such a moment come back to you. When did this happen? Where were you exactly? Did you see or hear anything? Do you remember what you felt at that moment when this person was looking at you, listening, or attending to you with kindness and love? How was this? How did you experience being seen or attended to in this way? Now, as a second step, I'd like to invite you to think back to a specific moment in which you felt that you were seeing someone or listening to someone or attending to someone with kindness and love. Maybe it's the same moment, or maybe it's a different moment. When did this happen? Where were you? Please take your time to bring back this memory. Can you recall how this was for you to see or listen to this person in this way with kindness and love? So now I invite you to bring your attention back into the space where you are physically located, and also to this virtual room where we are gathered together. And if you wish, you can bring with you this sense of kindness and love. Welcome back. Thank you. So it would be, I only see names of a lot of people and Fabio and Lily, so, but I imagine that there's a lot of people out there, and some of them are listening, and some of them took part in this exercise, and I can think about how exciting it would be for me to make an interview with you, all of you, about the experiences that you just touched into now. How these memories came back to you, how they felt in your body, and how perhaps they progressed in time. It would be interesting to compare the experiences that you lived, to see if there were any patterns or differences. And furthermore, it would be interesting to relate all this to the circumstances of your lives. How and in what circumstances do different experiences of love emerge in a person's life? And how do experiences of love impact on a person's life? I imagine that the experiences you lived could be of many different kinds. Some of you might have come in touch with their love for their partner. Others perhaps the love for their parents or children, a friend, a teacher, maybe a spiritual or religious guide, or perhaps an animal, a plant, a rock, a landscape, or something entirely different. Some of what you came into contact with might be private, and I'll not ask that you share your experiences. Of course, you can do this if you wish, but what I ask is to see if you can bring with you the sensibility that you touched into as we now move through the rest of this presentation. And you might consider questions like, to come into contact with your own subjective experiences, in this instance, experiences of love. Does that help you to tune into other people's experiences? Or could such a listening inwards, in some instances, prevent you from listening outwards? What touches or speaks to or resonates with you? How might that be relevant to what you are working with and how you work? Is it important for the people you work with? Is it relevant for the people who read our work or see our work? Yes. So let me say a few additional words about love. First of all, I think we can agree that there seems to be many kinds of love. Love can be pleasurable, but it can also be painful. People will do a lot for love, even kill. Love is a gigantic business, and sometimes it almost becomes a caricature. Sometimes we have a tendency to reduce love to very specific notions of romance. People across different cultures and religions often relate experiences of love to the heart. This can be the physical heart, this organ right here, or the area around the chest. At other times, people refer to an emotional or metaphorical or spiritual heart, or all these hearts at once. It is both strange and interesting how people often relate these physical, emotional, and spiritual dimensions to the heart. A bit of a mystery. In the Heart Openings Project, we are working with religious and contemplative communities in different parts of the world who have an explicit language about love and the qualities of the heart, and who also have practices through which they seek to train their hearts, practices that ideally they do every day. In this way, these people can, from our perspective, be seen as specialists of love, specialists within the different contexts in which they live. So by studying with people in very different parts of the world, we hope that we can expand our understanding of the qualities of the heart and about what it means to love in different ways and how perhaps we might become better at loving. And so I'd like to see if I can share the screen now. Yeah. So I hope you see a screen now. If not, then say something to me.
No, we do see it. Yeah,
You see it. That's great. So I wish to share a short clip from a film called Light Upon Light that we finished in 2022, and which is part of this larger project. And it's produced by Hala Lotfi, and I work together with Mohammed Mustafa and Amira Mutada and many other people in the production of this film. We are going to meet Ahmed in this little clip, and he describes a kind of love which might be different from or similar to the kinds of love that you just experienced. We meet Ahmed a late night in a village in the Egyptian Delta. Together with others, he's training or cultivating his heart through prayer and ritual, through music and movements, through poetry, and the use of prayer beads. So let me just show this short clip.
السبحة اللي معايا دي السبحة اللي معايا ديت يعني الناس مفكراها سبحة، الناس مفكراها ايه هي سبحة هي حقيقية، انما انا لما ساعة كده ما البسها في رقبتي كده احطها على رقبتي بتبقى في الحضرة عبارة عن أفعى. الأفعى ديت بتحرك جسمي كله زي موج البحر، مفيش أي عضلة في الجسم عندي ما بتتحركش. وبعدين بخش مع الروح جامد واسرح واسمع الذكر، اخش في حب سيدنا النبي وآل البيت جامد. ببدأ اروح بقى ايه مع آل البيت ومع آل سيدنا النبي بروحي مش بجسدي، بروحي. فالروح ما بقدرش اتحكم فيها، هي اللي بتوديني وتجيبني.
يا مريد الجذب معلش نفسه فين، في ساحل بابا البدوي ولا زين العابدين ولا
Yes. So as you saw, Ahmed is taking part in this ritual to become aware of and make present in his experience, to feel and enter the love of the Prophet and the family of the Prophet. How do you resonate with the words and the experience of love that Ahmed is sharing here, with the music or with the movements in such a clip? Maybe there are things that you can connect to, and maybe there are things that are strange or not easy to connect to. I wish to show a second video from the same film, Light Upon Light, and I'm sharing these clips because they are already released, and so we can share these in public. And so I wish to show you this second clip, and you'll meet Maher, who at this time is 73 years old, and he's in a comfortable place in his life, but he's struggling to find meaning and faith. A visit to a shrine of a holy man in Upper Egypt made a difference, and I was with Maher during this time of his life, and on this trip, and so I asked Maher if he would be willing to share his experience. So let's watch that.
قلت له يا شيخ صلاح أنا جاي لك من مصر، وأنا يعني كل شك وكل يعني حاجات كتيرة أنا مش قادر يعني أشرحها، لكن حاسس إن أنا مانيش قريب منك، مانيش قادر أوصل لك. حاسس إن أنا مجرد إن أنا بتفرج على الناس بيحكوا عليك وبيتكلموا عليك بحب وبتقدير، وانا مانيش حاسس بالحب ده، ولا حاسس بالتقدير اللي هم بيقدروه لك ده، ولا حاسس بان انا متصل بيك. وبحاول على قدر الامكان ان انا يعني اوصل ان انا احس وابقى في متصل بيك لكن مانيش عارف ازاي. مش عايز احس بكده، وعايز احس بارتباط بيك حقيقي، وكل الشكوك دي تكون يعني ما تبقاش موجودة. And after that, at a certain point time, the door opened of the door that entering to the maqam from the outside. I felt and I saw a bright light. Maybe for a very little time, and then I saw this man coming, starting walking. I felt he's looking into my heart. He's looking into my soul, into my heart. He's not just gaze into my face like this, but he's looking to me deeply. It means it's a look that sort of it takes you all like this, excluded out of everything. I mean, even the sounds around me or people talking, nothing. I didn't feel as if it was me alone and going to them. And he took me in his arms and he embraced me, and he embraced me very tightly. And he said, and he stayed like this for I don't know how long, but it was such a beautiful embrace. I felt it was Sheikh Salah embracing me. And this is what I had asked from Sheikh Salah. I had asked him, I want you to embrace me. I want you to take me in your arms. And I felt that he was answering me. And it was I don't know, I just can't describe it. It was too beautiful. I myself, I can't really. It was too strong and too beautiful. Ever since I came back, I feel the company of Sheikh Salah. I never felt this before. Even in everything I'm doing, as if he's holding my hand and he's guiding me. I'm surprised from what I feel.
So for Maher, this meeting with the holy man in Upper Egypt changed his relation not only to his religion and to God, but also to his children and to his wife. He considers this moment one of the most significant events in his life. Maher and Ahmed, they're from different parts of Egyptian society. They are also of different age. They have different educational and occupational backgrounds. And it can be interesting to compare and explore how in different ways they seek and experience love and what significance these experiences have for them. And so these two examples from Egypt, they're from Egypt and they're also from traditions related to Islam and Sufism. So this project in Egypt is part of a larger framework, including also the following projects. So Katrine Parhus, who is making a project called Love in Action about Pentecostalism in Denmark and Tanzania. Renee Ford is making a project on experiences and the cultivation of love among Tibetan Buddhists in Nepal and in the US. Olivia Barnett-Narcini, who is working on a project on love among Muslims in the UK and different groups of Christians in Papua New Guinea. Kenny Hede, who is working on a project called Fire Soul about altruism, Bildung, and mutable perceptions of democracy in Danish welfare work. So these are forms of love and also challenges to love at the intersections of the welfare state and with different religious communities. Peter Musaeus is making a project on experiences of deep learning in higher education, where he's investigating whether at moments of deep learning some of these qualities of the heart that we have talked about here are also in play. Hanne Bess Bolsbjerg and Morten Bo Larsen, they are making a project on experiences and the cultivation of love among priests in Denmark. And just a note on this image, I think it can be useful to to say that our involvement when doing such work here sometimes results in quite a high degree of participation. And so this is best that you see who's receiving a prayer, and so to make or to attempt to make an anthropology of and from the heart might not be that easy if you're standing on the outside or at a distance, and best is certainly not at the outside here. So that's one thing we can say, but I think we also learn that it is by no means an easy thing to open one's heart to others, and it can be difficult, and it can be life-changing. So our project is called Heart Openings, but sometimes the heart can't open, or it needs time to open, and sometimes it should not open, but just needs to be taken care of. And I think that's useful to say. And then a project called on how qualities of the heart are cultivated at a place called Vækstcentret in Denmark, where they are especially inspired by Buddhist practices of meditation, a community that lives and works there and are inspired by this. Also by Hannibal Spolsbjerg, together with Martijn van Beek and myself. So in this project, Heart Openings, we use film and audiovisual media, as you have seen a few examples of. We also use life story interviews, and we use the anthropological methods of participation and observation. And with the help of our mentors, Katrin Heimann and Claire Petit-Manchon and Martijn van Beek, we also use interviews inspired by microphenomenology to see if we can focus in on subjective experiences, concrete subjective experiences, and see if we can describe them and understand them in as many details as possible. So I wish to show a final example. This is from our work at Vækstcentret at Nørresnede, and it is with Ny. When I first met Ny, she told me about a breathing exercise inspired by Tibetan Buddhism. It's a simple exercise, but it has become important for her, and she has used it, I think, more or less every day for many years. So what she does is that she breathes in from above her head, and then she exhales from her heart. Yeah, a simple exercise in that sense. And in some way, I connected with her in this exercise, and it somehow resonated with me, whatever it is that she's doing. So some weeks later, I asked Ny if she would do the breathing exercise again, and then I asked her if she can describe her experience to me. So she first says to me that the exercise brings her into this feeling of gratitude, cohesion, and that she feels trust. And this is really something also that happens between us at this moment. There is a sense of mutual trust and cohesion. But how does that begin? So I then ask her again, and this is where we start watching, and we're just going to see a tiny clip. I asked her if she could go back to the very first part of the exercise before these feelings emerged. What happens there? Jeg har bedt dig om, jeg sidder i det her rum. Vi har den her samtale, og jeg har fået en idé, og så beder jeg dig om, kan du prøve at lave øvelsen lige nu? Hvad er det allerførste, der sker derefter?
at rummet udvider sig. Jeg ånder ud fra hjertet og går ligesom med udånding ud, og rummet udvider sig.
Og når ud fra hjertet, og der er en fornemmelse af rummet, der udvider sig.
Ja, bevidstheden udvider sig.
Og når du fornemmer det, hvordan er det?
Det er lyst. Det er sådan himmelagtigt. Nu prøver jeg at lave øvelsen igen. Så prøver jeg at ånde ud og kontakte dit hjerte.
So there's a kind of cliffhanger there. You'll have to wait for the final film to see what happens when she contacts my heart. But for me, there are many things to say about a short clip like this. There's the emotional tone, the breath, the gaze, and the interaction between Ny and the person behind the camera, which is, of course, me. And also how the very moment of filming can sometimes become a site of cultivating a sense of love and connection in itself. This attention that can be part of filming such an event. But here I just briefly wish to pay attention to the words uttered and how we work with them to try to go deeper into concrete experiences relating to the cultivation of the qualities of the heart. So Ny says, I exhale from the heart, the space and awareness expand. It is light, sky-like. So when closely examining a short description of an experience like this, together with other interviews, including the interviews with Ahmed and Meher, we realize that the experiences and the content of the experiences are quite different, but we also are given some hints that the structural unfolding of the experiences could have something in common. So Ahmed describes how he can take on and wear the prayer beads, which then becomes a snake, and that the snake then moves his body like the waves of the sea. He describes this as if being brought into a different realm, the space of the soul, and in the presence of and moving with the prophet and the family of the prophet. Meher describes how while leaning his head to the marble of the shrine of a holy man, Sheikh Salah, he asks for a sign of love. He is then faced with a bright light and the gaze of a man who sees into his heart, a look that takes it all, excludes him from everything, an event that then proceeds to the embrace. Ny also describes an initial act, a microact. I exhale from the heart. This appears to be followed by an event that happens to her. The space and awareness expands. It becomes light, sky-like. So these parallel movements might be hints that what we have could be a tiny experiential structure, a progression between two phases. The first phase could be called a trigger, a kind of action that these people do which triggers a second phase that happens to them, the emergence of some form of love, a transformation, an opening, or an expansion. And I guess that's nice to have in mind, that there are possibilities of triggering such things, and maybe not a surprise. It's worth paying attention to some of the words and gestures that are used. Ny's word, sky-like. Such words, I don't know if we can call them something like words, very often emerge when people try to express their experience of these moments. Like a sky, but not exactly sky. Like wool, but not exactly wool. Like feathers, but not exactly feathers. Like streams of light, but not exactly light. That's often something that people express. Or Ahmed's prayer beats transforming into a snake. The muscles in his body that start to move like the waves of the sea. Or Meher's, I felt he's looking into my heart. And then this gesture. It's a look that takes it all. So is this a visual or tactile sensation? It's something that's not either or, vision or touch, it's both. So these moments often have such synesthetic qualities. The microphenomenologist Claire Petit-Manchang might use the word transmodal qualities. At these moments, the boundaries between sensory modalities are dissolving. Often there seems to be a form of transduction taking place, where certain sensory qualities merge with and transform into other qualities. So when we find hints to a microdynamic like this, small structural features that appear to emerge across interviews, it means that we become better at attending to them if they appear or if they do not appear in the next interview. In addition, we can bring these observations into our dialogues with people in order to examine them further. All right. So why do we find that could be interesting to do or relevant? So I spent most of my academic career focusing on mainly problems and tensions. I did research and took part in debates on the conflicts between Muslims and non-Muslims in Europe, about so-called integration problems, about religious extremism, so-called radicalization, spirit possession, psychosis, these kinds of things. And the world and the media is saturated with urgent problems that we need to attend to and take care of. The climate crisis, the rapid decline of biodiversity, the refugee crisis, what's happening in Gaza and the Middle East, in Ukraine, and many other places in the world. Perhaps we could talk about a crisis of indifference, and also of intercultural and interreligious misunderstanding. All of this is quite difficult, especially for the people who are directly impacted by these things, but also for us who have the privilege to be sort of looking at it or hearing about it, and sometimes feeling touched by it. It is difficult, and we know that it's probably going to be more difficult. It feels as a cliche to say, but in midst of these kinds of challenges, and in this kind of pain, it seems important to keep breathing and keep loving and keep remembering and attending to things that make life precious and beautiful and worth living. So in the Heart Openings Project, we work with religious and contemplative communities, and these religious traditions have in common a language and a set of practices relating to love and to the heart. But these traditions have also been part of centuries of conflict. So for many people, the experiences we're exploring here are among the most precious in their lives. Perhaps it looks nice and pleasant, But experiences of love can also be full of pain, and they can often be the site of conflict. It is relevant from an existential perspective to examine how it might be possible to work with the heart and with love, how to become better at loving. The scholarly response, at least in anthropology and also in the study of religion, to such conflicts that we just mentioned, have in recent decades been about embracing people, cultures, and religions in their difference. But ethical attempts to respect difference have resulted in reifications and the encouragement of difference. This can't be sufficient. We need to explore more enthusiastically what might bind us together. We need to explore what we share as humans, despite our differences, and how we can live together with our differences. So this was my attempt to say a few words about how audiovisual media, life story interviews, or microphenomenological interviews, and anthropological fieldwork could perhaps be used to explore experiences of love, and also how they can be useful tools if we wish to give the qualities of the heart more space in research and teaching, in scientific criticism, and in our engagement with the communities and environments in which we live and work. So I think I can stop sharing, and I think it's now time for a discussion. And I'm happy to discuss in more detail the use of the methods I introduced. And I think it could also be interesting to reflect upon how what I have presented here might resonate or not resonate with the way you work, and to consider how anthropological research can be and often is a way of cultivating what in this presentation I've referred to as the qualities of the heart. So, thank you. Yes.
Thank you to you, Christian, for this great and experiential presentation, which is unusual, which doesn't mean not proper. Rather, the contrary, it was inspiring in many ways. And yes, also especially your last comment about how we are not used to actually use the art in our.
Fabio,
Yes.
It's a little difficult to hear. Can
Okay.
you repeat the last?
Okay, no, it doesn't matter. It was just, a comment in general. So can you hear me now better? Okay, great. But anyway, before indulging in any other comment, I'd like to actually open the floor to, the people who are here and are probably willing to intervene and or ask questions. So please, can you raise your hand physically by showing it the screen? Or by
Yes,
using
don't hesitate to just ask your question. Okay, or we give you a little time because I have, of course, I have a question. Or Fabio, maybe you wanted to. Okay, so we give you a little time. I will ask my question. So thank you, Christian, for this wonderful presentation. I found that it really opened a space. So in a way, so the examples you gave, I found resonated in the presentation, also with this exercise we did of having these images of being seen and loved. And so for me, there was really a resonance. And of course, I could not help but see also a contrast with academia as it exists nowadays. And actually, the rarity of such spaces where you feel protected, safe, loved, compared to the anxieties, because you didn't use the word anxiety, but I think anxieties of this, unfortunately, how academia has evolved. And also, interestingly, you pointed to the fact that often we think we need to study problems and tensions and conflicts and power relations. And so there is a certain, quite a lot of anxiety here. So I was wondering if you have more thoughts about why is it that academia doesn't provide these spaces. Why can you maybe link it to knowledge? Because this is what Fabio and I are also interested in, the way knowledge is defined quite often in relation to power and control, and not to the state of being in the womb, if you like. So do you have more thoughts about, in general, academic knowledge today, and what could be, how to cultivate these spaces, so the spaces that we experience today in this discussion? Thank you.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's a really great question and difficult, and I don't think I have answers, but it's definitely a concern for me. I I do think that yeah, I mean, your analysis is right, that academia is full of anxiety and stress and competition, and the way we often are forced to conduct our work and write our work does not always include a space for attending to the heart or to any of these other qualities. I think there are definitely possibilities, and there are many existing pockets within academia where there can be spaces for this. And maybe what you are trying to create here by opening up the discussion about how to study the tradition of Islam could be such a space. Yeah, I just yeah, I think it's important that if we have the privilege, like if we somehow competed our way to a position in this system, then that we think about these issues so we don't replicate those things that we have been suffering from, and so we try to open a space for other ways of doing academia, doing our teaching, and this is not something new. I think it's a concern for many people, and it's not lots of people are doing. I mean, I don't want to present this as something new. It's just, I think it's an important concern to continue and to develop, and sometimes it feels that there's too little of it, and that's the way, right? Our exam systems or our evaluation systems and all of this are geared in somewhat strange ways, and in ways that are not sustainable, right? And in ways that are completely in line with the other ways that we are making boundaries and separating things and impacting our surroundings in very harmful ways. And so it's I think it is really quite important. We try to do something about it, right? What else? I don't think I can say a lot of clever things apart from having this feeling that something should happen and something should be moving in that direction. And luckily, some things are moving in that direction, such as this invitation that you guys are doing to have a different approach to the study of Islam, which I take as an invitation not only to think about the tradition of Islam from the outside or as an kind of object of study, but to sort of really take in what are the kinds of wisdom that might be in this tradition? What could that teach us? Could that help us to transform the limitations of academic ways of understanding knowledge? And yeah, that's what I have to say, Lilith. You can add what you have to say about it, maybe.
Okay, maybe
I think
later.
it's nice, but I see that we have now. Thank you. It's a very nice answer, and I see we have a question by
Yes,
Thea
couple questions.
Scanes first. Yes.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Christian. It's wonderful to listen to your presentations as always. So, and I was just thinking about these the triggers, and also on the microphenomenology as a methodology. I work as a museum curator, and we, work with the material collections, and we also find these objects in our collections that are testaments to other epistemologies, like you were talking about, Billy. So for instance, that there could be material objects that you would need in order to transcend into, to gain access to those spaces that you were talking about. I think that your examples were rich in this transcendence, or you gained an access to another place, another field or sphere, and I was just thinking more about those triggers. I think that it is very interesting to look into those. Shamans needing the smoke to make a safe travel to other worlds, and so if you found anything like that, there are these material sides to your stories, the beads, the how he touched the grave, these kind of the inhalation and exhale. I think that could you just expand a little bit more on that?
Christian,
Yeah.
do you want to take a second one, or you want to just to get back to this?
This is up to you, Fabio.
No, okay.
I can remember this one, and we can. It's up to you.
No, please go reply.
Thank you for this comment and the kind words. I mean, it's wonderful to work with film or images because there's a lot going on in them. But I think language, or written language articles, and can also offer ways of triggering different things, of course, and the materiality of the places that you saw in these videos include many things, but so does my office here. I mean, even if it's might be less inviting or something like this, but there are small things. There's a plant over here that when I see it in the morning, it does something to me, right? And so yeah, I think it can be useful to think about when we, for example, begin to write the next article. How are we triggering the audience, and toward kind of imaginary or sensory or emotional possibilities? What kind of things are we opening up towards? And so if we do begin in a very, like, we have certain ways that immediately triggers a certain register of logic, which is useful and important and good, but quite often we can stay there for long periods of academic writing and that sometimes means that there are other registers that we don't touch into, and that could be lost, and which could be important, because and that's I think one place where religious traditions and contemplative traditions such as Islam and other traditions as well have something to teach us, that there can be an intelligence of the heart, there can be other kinds of understanding that are important to attend to as well, and that we often leave out of our work. Yeah. Is that a kind of answer, or? Yeah.
Okay. And now, please, Ala.
Hey, thank you.
Nice
Thank
to
you
see you,
for
by the way.
nice to see you again. Thank you for the organizer, both of you, great seminars, and for the presenter. Yes, indeed, this is a long-lasting debate, but I must say, the anthropology of the heart, very provocative, but yet very challenging. Now, we have 2 points I'm challenged with, is the conceptual, the methodological. So at the conceptual level, we have the burden of epistemology and the burden of rationality, and what we classify as a knowledge. Can what we feel be constituted as a knowledge and access the truth? Because the question of a truth, it's objective truth, is so problematic now. And as you said, it is actually contributed to all this diversity among us, to all these politics of difference. So maybe the focus heart can lead to reality and to the obvious sense of the human self. I am surprised. Before I attended this lecture, I was listening to interviews. I'm also making a movie about Sufism in Cape Town, and how much there is similarity. I can't describe it. This is what they often say. You need to experience it. So I become, and now I have in mind Johannes Fabian critique to anthropology and to informative ethnography. How can we develop a methodology without asking people a question? Shall we go back to classic anthropology that we need to gain the local point of view? We need to spend time in the field work to make our heart part of the knowledge. So actually, my main challenge, which I don't have answer like yourself, my main challenge is the methodological challenge, because the moment you ask people a question, it's like they want to rationalize this heart, and this also limit where they end up saying, I can't describe it. My second question, which also based on the question of knowledge, I'm trying to relate this to the question of ethics. Because moving beyond this rational ethics, and we saw in the interview with Maher how his relation to others have changed, how looking into his heart means seeing him, knowing him. So how can this approach to the aesthetic, I want to depart from the heart to include all our sensory experience, how could this contribute to the anthropology of ethics? I don't want to limit our discussion to the anthropology of Islam. I don't think anthropology of Islam had done justice to the sensory experience, whether Glivert Gears team or Talal Asad team. They're very much discursive. So how can this question of the heart, what can tell us about ethics in relation to others and all this social and the convivial society in which we inspire to live? Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you for this. It's a lot to there's a lot to discuss in that. So it's so for this last thing that you mentioned about ethics. I think when you see a Meher, this clip that you talked about with Meher, the old guy that he's describing this experience that he had, I think there's no doubt in that moment, when I hope not, that what you're watching, that he's okay with this. There's not an issue about whether that's okay to be recorded, or like he's expressing himself without much anxiety about expressing himself. There's some protections have been uh, eased, and he's speaking from a kind of very open. He's speaking very openly about what he feels, and when he doesn't have words, he just doesn't have words, but that's also a kind of expression. So that's beautiful, and there is and for me as well. I knew him before this happened, and I was with him when it happened. So I'm very touched by also seeing it again, but in the situation, I was, it's as if what he says enters. I mean, the sound waves of his voice enters me, right? So whatever he says is also vibrating within us and resonating with us, and it's sort of I'm of course doing certain things that I know works because I have learned skills of interviewing and filming and other things. But there's also something that's happening between us, and that so there's a dance there that is opening up, where there's a kind of a way that I'm participating in his opening up and feeling a part of, or an echo of, that experience. And I think you are as well when you're expressing this. And that's not reducing his experience to like as if we have grasped it or we know his experience or something, but we are participating in it. We are somehow connected with him. Like our hearts were, I think that's also what you're expressing. Our hearts were somehow touched by his experience of being touched by something else. So I find that incredibly beautiful, and thank you for actually offering your reflections on this, and there is an ethics about considering such situations and maybe staying with them and appreciating them for how valuable such moments are. And they are really valuable. Like there is a deep connection between me and Meher. I'm sure he would agree if you ask him, even if we are very different places in our lives, but we shared something there, and he shared a vulnerability, and yeah, it's just a lot to appreciate in that. And there's a lot to there's also an ethics around how to take care of that, and how not, because in that space, of course, that's also from that kind of vulnerable place, you can also really hurt people. And of course, anthropologists, and I'm sure I myself have sometimes hurt people. But so there is something about finding gratitude in that, and then trying to do our best not to, to live up to the responsibility of carrying it. I think in the Arabic language, there's this word amana, to receive something and to take care of it, or yeah, so there's a lot about that I think goes with our work. And concretely, of course, that would mean being in a relationship with people, making sure that people have the possibility to actually see what they're part of, to allow ways of making analysis or film or writing that where people can be part of that or have an opinion about it or ask not to be part of it. I find that in academia we have developed this procedure, for example, of anonymization, as if this was ethically correct, and it's even written into like regulations and whatnot, like that we have made an interview with people and then we anonymize them, and then that's somehow ethically correct or good in some way. I think this is deeply problematic. People have a right not to be seen and to be anonymous, but people also have a right to be attended to or to be seen and to close our eyes or anonymize people or make them invisible. It can definitely be just as harmful and hurtful as making them visible in vulnerable situations. So I think it's a matter of staying in a relationship and talking together and figuring out these things, and not to obey whatever regulations are impacting our work, but to actually engage critically with them and do that from this sort of interpersonal space. Yeah. Is that I feel I'm just talking too much, but anyway, I appreciate this comment and what you saw in that clip. And you said more, but I think, yeah.
Do I still have time for a question? Or
Yeah, I think we have time for a last question.
very briefly, Christian. No, I would like to make it if anybody else does. What struck me most in this presentation was these words that were evoked by your interlocutors. They all reminds to big things, space, light, something bigger, brighter than us, than the individual, and this of course relates to what you yourself evoked at the beginning, saying that this kind of experience in some way helps us or the people we speak with to go beyond themselves. I think in some way this is all connected, of course, to the experiences of transcendence. Many things we also, Lily and I, are working on. But I was wondering, especially regarding the research which is conducted in, if I remember correctly, a kind of secular organization association for democracy in Denmark, something like that, something you mentioned. How in this kind of context this idea of transcendence is figured, experienced, sensed, evoked? If you can just add a few words about that.
I think so. This is the work of Kenny Heather, who is a PhD, and he should come and talk about this himself. He's in the midst of research, so I shouldn't say too much about it. But I'm very excited about how there are certain things we find in all kinds of stuff. Like there's some way what you heard this old guy Maher talk about is in a relationship with everyday kinds of experiences, like a person receiving a hug from a friend or from her sister. When you look carefully at how people are describing such experiences, there is a relationship. There might be a difference in degree, and the content of the experiences are very different, but there are some structural patterns that are resonating. So that's exciting. And so in Danish bureaucracy, you can find kinds of love as well and kindness. And you can also find, I think Kenny would say, times where the where the cold distanced procedures of bureaucracy is a form of love, is a form of kindness. I mean, there are times when that is the case as well, right? You could imagine many situations where it's actually the thing is not to just become emotional or add a lot of pathos. I don't know how to pronounce this, but to take a step back and try to not that this can be actually a gesture of a kind of love. So he's working on some of those things, and then how that interacts with different religious groups as well. But I think he should finish his work and he should come and present it to. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Just curious about that thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to thank Christian again for being here, for his presentation, for his engagement with our hearts as well. I'm not as well, more than with our intellects probably, or both. And I want to thank all who actually attended today. And just give me the last 30 seconds just to remind you that we'll have another meeting like this one in May. Should be May 8th. Let's just ask confirm this later. And we'll host Emilio Spadola, will make a presentation on his work, his new project on Islam and many other things we still don't know, but we'll find out as soon as he provides us with an abstract and a title. And then beyond this, I just a reminder that unfortunately this year our network won't be able to attend the EASA conference in Barcelona. So we will have our panel together with Lily and Stefan online. But probably we'll also organize a meeting before or after the conference with all the network members, just to discuss possible future activities together, and just to carve out a space where we can discuss more about many things we can actually do together. So thank you again to everybody, and hopefully see you soon. And let's stay connected through our hearts and our work. So see you soon again, hopefully.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Fabio and Lily.
Christian,
Bye-bye.
and everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.